Hi students, Miss Marsh here. Just wanted to start our Algebra 2 lesson here. So we're going to look at function operations and compositions. What you're going to want to have on you. You're going to want to have your notebook. You're going to have a calculator and then, of course, a writing utensil of some sort. Some learning targets for today, which you should have at the top of your notebook. I can perform operations on functions and also I can perform compositions on functions. A lot of you have already seen operations. So that's like the adding, multiplying, dividing kind of stuff. We're going to look at adding, subtracting, and multiplying today. Just because dividing, we got to get some more knowledge before we start that. So first things first, we're going to take g of x plus 2 times h of x. So what does that mean? That's probably what you're asking. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to do this g of x. We're actually going to take what g of x is and put it there. So g of x is x squared plus 4x minus 3. And then I have to do 2 times h of x. So 2 times, what is h of x? Well, h of x is 4x squared minus 2x. So I'm going to go 4x squared minus 2x and put it in parentheses like that. So now what I have to do is I need to distribute this 2 in. You see how it's outside, so I had to use the distributive property. So I'm going to rewrite here. So 2 times 4x squared, that's 8x squared, right? And then 2 times negative 2x is negative 4x. Now, I need to take some common terms and put them together. So you're saying, what are the common terms? Well, I know I have an x squared and an 8x squared. And a 4x and a negative 4x. So I need to combine the ones that are like each other. So x squared and 8x squared combine. So if I have 1x squared and 8x squareds, I have 9x squareds total, right? And then I have a 4x and I'm going to take away 4x's. So I don't have any more x's. So we're just going to leave that out. But don't forget about that minus 3. So 9x squared minus 3 is technically my final answer. What about f of x minus g of x? So I'm going to take my f of x, put it down. F of x, I know it's negative 2x there. Minus, I'm going to put g of x in parentheses, and I'll show you why in a minute. So g of x, if we look in our table over there, we got x squared plus 4x minus 3. Perfect. So now, notice how I'm subtracting all of g of x. I actually have to make sure that negative goes to everybody in g of x. So I'm going to distribute what is technically a negative 1 to all 3 of those terms. So negative 1 times x squared is negative 1x squared. Negative 1 times 4 times x is negative 4x. And negative 1 times negative 3 is a positive 3. So now, what I need to do, I need to group some like terms, just like we did on the other one. So notice how I have a negative 4x and a negative 2x. And then it doesn't look like I have anybody in order anymore that are alike. So I'm going to start figuring these out. I have negative 1x squared. I'm going to put them in decreasing order. So highest power, next highest, and so on and so forth. So negative 1x squared goes first. Negative 2x minus 4x, well, that's negative 6x. And then I have this plus 3 just kind of hanging out. So my answer for that one is negative 1x squared minus 6x plus 3. I can keep that negative x squared or just negative 1x squared, whichever one works best for you. Let's take a look at some multiplication. So I have j of x times h of x. So j of x is x minus 5. And h of x is 4x squared minus 2x. Now, you've done these before. We're going to need to FOIL it out. Okay? So, first times first, so x times a 4x squared. Remember, how many x's do I have? So right now I have 2 x's and I have 1 more x. So that's 3 x's in all. So 4x cubed, right? When I multiply, don't mess with the coefficients, mess with the exponents. So I have my firsts, I'm going to go my outsides now. So x times negative 2x is negative 2x squared because I have one x and an x, so I have two x's. Negative 5 times 4x squared, that's negative 20x squared. And then negative 5 times negative 2x, well, that's positive 10x. So, do I have anybody to combine? It looks like I do. Got those two guys. So, 4x cubed gets to stay out in the front because he has the largest exponent. Negative 2x squared and negative 20x squared. Those two combined together, I get negative 22x squared, right? Plus 10x. Now, got to do this one. F of x, negative 2x, times g of x, which is x squared plus 4x minus 3. So this negative 2x, I need to distribute her into everywhere over there. So negative 2x times x squared, well, that's negative 2x cubed, because I have 1x here, 2x is there. Negative 2x times 4x, that's negative 8x squared. And then negative 2x times a negative 3 is a positive 6x. Not too hard, right? Pretty easy. It's just you gotta make sure you pick the right functions. That is the hardest part, I think. Now, we've been working on kind of the plugging in aspect of a number. So I have h of negative 2. So that is, what is h at negative 2? So we're going to take h, and whenever I see an x, I'm going to put a negative 2 in place. So it's going to look something like that, right? So I had an x there and an x there, so I put negative 2's there. So I'm going to have 4 times, what's negative 2 squared? Negative 2 times negative 2, that's 4. And then negative 2 times negative 2, that's a positive 4, right? So 4 times 4, that is 16 plus 4. And 16 plus 4, well, that's 20. So I know h of negative 2 is equal to 20. Now, notice how that next one, the inside is not a number. It's an actual function. So how this is read, this is j of g of x. This is what's known as a composition. And these are a little funky to get past, but they're actually not too bad once you get used to them. What we're going to do, I'm going to take what is g of x and put it into the parentheses. So I'm going to have j of, what is g of x? So let's look. G of x is right here. So in my parentheses, where I originally had g of x, I'm actually going to write out what g of x originally was. So I know that g of x was x squared plus 4x minus 3. So into j, if there would have been a number there, kind of like negative 2 was over here, I plugged it in for an x, right? So I'm going to call a substitution of x. And whenever I see an x, I need to put x squared plus 4x minus 3. That's technically what they're asking you to do. So in j, because that's what they're asking, I see an x, I'm going to put x squared plus 4x minus 3. So let's try this. Let's start with j of x. It equals x. Notice I have an x. Now, x, I have to substitute for x. I have to call it x squared plus 4x minus 3. So that's taking in the place of x. Kind of think of him as the stand-in or the backup quarterback. He's backing up the x. So then I need to finish the rest of j. So I already used x, and it's going to be minus 5. So I have to basically finish what j was. But I just got to put g where the x was, okay? So I now need to combine. It looks like I have a negative 3 and a negative 5 that I can put together. So I'm going to have x squared plus 4x minus 8. And let's take a look at another one here. So I have g of f of x. So into g, I'm going to put f of x in its place. So let's take a look at that. So g of f of x. What is f of x? F of x is negative 2x. What does this mean? This means that I need to take negative 2x and put it wherever I see an x in G. So let's start writing out G here. I have x squared. Well, x squared is just an x squared. So I need to write negative 2x squared, because this is x. If you see an x, you better have whatever you're supposed to plug in. And then plus 4 times, oh, I saw another x, negative 2x minus 3. So now, let's figure out what this is. Negative 2x squared. Well, that's negative 2x times negative 2x, right? Which is negative 2 times negative 2, that's 4, and then I have 2x, so that's 4x squared. Really? Right? Yeah. So I would have 4x squared, 4 times negative 2x, well, that's just negative 8x. And then I just have that minus 3 kind of tagging along for the ride. So I'm going to have 4x squared, oops, minus 8x minus 3 for my final answer. And as you saw, that's the end of the show. See you later.